We're episode 46. So 4 more episodes till 50. And we've got something big planned for 50, if we can get it over the line. How are you, Dan?
Good, thanks, John. Yourself, mate?
I'm awesome. Did you watch the cricket?
Yeah, I was on I did have a weekend away. I had a Bucks weekend, actually, John, so I probably didn't catch as much of it as I would have liked. But I saw bits and pieces of it. Yeah, I'm no surprise Australia won that series, John, in 2 games. Yeah, it's... I mean, I guess, you know, we got... to be honest, John, I think we got a bit of a problem in the scheduling with cricket. I think February, it seems to be a really... Well, it's a dead month, really. Once the test matches are over and the tennis finishes, the Australian Open, you've got a real dead period in February. And I think cricket really doesn't help itself in that period. We would have much rather have seen a third test, especially after the way the West Indies won that second one, with Shamar Joseph taking those 7 wickets in that second innings and bowling the West Indies to a very unlikely victory there. I can't think of any cricket fan who would rather watch 3 meaningless ODIs and then 3 meaningless 2020s. Ahead of watching a third test, what would have been a third and deciding test in that test series. So I think cricket needs to have a look at it. It's been a problem for a long time now, and they don't seem to have... You feel like a broken record with cricket. You keep bringing up its problems, and it just does nothing about them. And just seems to make the same mistakes with the scheduling.
Yes, every year we have the same issues. My computer's going crazy, so I've just got to restart. So I'm going to lose my rundown, but that's all right. You've got one?
That's all right. Yeah, I got one.
You know, there was the uncovering of some new superstars in the Australian C-grade squad. I don't know what you'd call it. But... Yeah, I didn't watch any of it because, you know, like Friday I can't watch any KO in my office thanks to TPG Internet not giving us an IP address that's in Australia. Mm-hmm. We're currently in Indonesia, apparently. We're waiting for them to give us a new IP address that's not in Indonesia. And then Sunday... I was actually like playing music all day for the first time in 3 years. So yeah, didn't get any cricket in over the weekend, but it just, again, it shows exactly what you're talking about. Like, I didn't prioritize watching it. I just couldn't be bothered. It didn't matter. It was so meaningless. It was just basically just a trial match type thing that I had no interest in at all. I understand Steve Smith didn't open.
Yeah, he batted at number 4. John, captaining the side, made 79 not out in that first ODI. Cameron Green also made 77 not out. So those two put on a big partnership to guide Australia to that target of 232. So yeah, when Josh Inglis's wicket fell, it was 2 for 83. So off the top of my head, that's, I think, a 149 run partnership, an unbeaten 149 run partnership between Smith and Green there to guide Australia to the win. Josh Inglis made 65 as well. John, we're going to talk about Travis Head a bit later on. John, disappointment for him. He made just 4 from 5 balls, but yeah, Josh Inglis was 65 and Green and Smith 77 not out, 79 not out, really chipping in with the bat for Australia. They're winning that first ODI by 8 wickets, John.
So that was on Friday, yeah?
Yeah, that was on Friday. That was at the MCG. And then yesterday, on Sunday, Australia made 9 for 258 and then bowled the West Indies out for 175. Australia winning by 83 runs. Sean Abbott, of all people, did well with the bat for Australia, made 69. And Matt Short chipped in with 41 as well there. Cameron Green made 33. So there you go, John. Australia 2-0 ahead in the 3-game series, and the series is done and dusted.
Then we get to watch the third one where they can present a trophy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
when is the third one? The third one's on Tuesday.
Tomorrow in Canberra. Tuesday in Canberra. So
and there's an issue with the crowds.
There is, John. You got your rundown back.
Yeah,
Great. Yeah. Issue with the crowds, John. So we only had 16,342 at the MCG on Friday, and in a 100,000 seat stadium. It's not a very good look, John. A lot of people were saying, "What is this, COVID again?
Yeah,
do we have these crowd restrictions again?"
Looks terrible on TV.
Yeah, it doesn't look great. I think there's a real. I've said it before, John. I don't see the point in playing ODIs apart from in a World Cup year. You play ODIs to warm up for a World Cup. You have your World Cup, and I think we're at a point where there's just no place for ODI cricket on the calendar anymore, John. Even 2020 international cricket out. I mean, you need a 2020 World Cup, I think. But outside of the two World Cups, the 2020 World Cup and the 50 over World Cup, I don't think you need T20 internationals because there's just so much franchise 2020 cricket around, John.
Yeah.
And you don't need ODI. You don't need these series mean nothing, John. Absolutely meaningless.
Cricket. That's one of the problems with cricket's international matches being like the pinnacle, not just the pinnacle, but the main watched thing. You know, like if you look at other sports, the main revenue and the mainly watched level of the sport is the first grade professional. You know, like, yes, everyone watches the World Cup, but if the soccer World Cup, but if soccer had 100 internationals every year, no one would watch them. They do have a lot of internationals, but if they had like 100 internationals like cricket does every year, and the main watched thing and the main revenue raiser for soccer is like the Premier League and the A-League and things like that. And cricket is the opposite. Like the first grade, highest level of cricket prior to international is so far below the international that no one wants to watch it.
Yeah.
And so they try to fill it up and make their money with internationals. And yeah, it's just... It's the fact that it goes for 52 weeks as well. Like it's a year-round sport, may be a big killer for it. It's because you got tests, then ODIs. Like you look at the West Indies one, 2 tests, 3 ODIs, 3 T20s. And Australia's off to New Zealand for 3 T20s, 2 tests, and 3 ODIs again or whatever. And then where will they go next? Who knows? But it could be off to somewhere else, and then off to somewhere else for these kind of like tests, ODIs, and T20 series. And it's just too much. They'll go all the way through to. So we have the summer of cricket, which is the most exciting part of Australian cricket, right? But there's also the winter of cricket in other countries.
Yeah, our winters, the England summer.
Yeah, so they go for the summer of cricket everywhere, and they just push it out everywhere. And that's the there's no higher level, and the lower level is so far below it that no one wants to watch the lower level. So they just trying to make this year-long thing that is just, you're only going to get 16,000 at the MCG if you do that.
Yeah, I think, John, that I think that they should have gone the 6 test matches instead of having the ODIs in 2020. So what I think they should do is, if you've got an England or India coming out, you have your 5 tests. Australia plays them in 5 tests. But if you don't have either of them coming out, well, then you play 3 tests against the 2 other sides. So that could be, against South Africa, against New Zealand, or like this summer against Pakistan and the West Indies. I'd much rather see that and don't have these meaningless ODIs and 2020 sprinkled around it. Just skip that. As I've said, should only play international ODIs leading into the World Cup. They should solely be a warm-up going into the World Cup. And you could say the same about 2020 international cricket. Only play some warm-up games going into the 2020 World Cup. Aside from that, that's one quick and easy way to clear space off the cricket calendar. Get rid of these meaningless ODIs and 2020s. No one cares. The results mean nothing. The next day after the game, you pretty much... I've talked about those results, John. I think we've already forgotten about what the results were.
Yeah, no, Australia won. I don't know what happened.
And that's it.
And then they got another one tomorrow. And that's the thing, like they come so quickly. Is it, like Friday, we talked about it, or Thursday, we talked about it. On Monday, we'll have an update for 2. And then we could do a preview for tomorrow, but the preview is Australia's going to win.
3-0. There you go.
There's going to be... Where is it? Is it in Adelaide?
Canberra.
Oh, yeah, you said that, yeah. There's going to have like 4,000 people there. No one's going to care.
Yeah, I mean, I've read some articles, John, and some other issues have been brought up. Like the ticket prices are too high. I think there's tickets going for $130. Who's going to pay $130 to sit in that heat yesterday and watch an ODI that nobody cares about? Not many people, John.
Especially at the SCG was yesterday.
Yeah.
How much does the SCG fit? 40,000? 35, 40,000?
I think it's about 48. Yeah, about 48.
20,000 people turned up. Why not sell the tickets for $30?
Yeah. So, and some other issues, John. I mean, that the only players from Australia's... And that's the other point to make, John, is that this Australian ODI team, this is a fresh World Cup winning team that's just won the World Cup only, that was only at the end of November, not that long ago at all,
like 3 months ago.
So the only players in that team was who were in the World Cup final, who played on Sunday, was Steve Smith, Marnus Labuschagne, Josh Inglis, Adam Zampa and Josh Hazlewood. Those are the only players who played in that World Cup final in the team. So there's that issue of Australia not picking their best players. There's the issue of the West Indies not being the force that they used to be. But to be honest, John, this has been a problem for ODIs for that long now that I think the things I've just gone through are just side issues. I think the overwhelming issue is that there's just a lack of care for outside of the 50 over World Cup. No one cares about ODIs anymore. Everyone I spoke to at that weekend away I was at, John, they all said the same thing. They all said, I could not care less about this game. And if you got a group of 20 or 30 people all saying that, well, Cricket Australia have got to take notice of that. Because if they pluck 20 or 30 people off the street and ask them, well, what do you think about ODI cricket? What do you think about this ODI series, Australia and the West Indies? And most of them would say, I could not care less. Cricket Australia's got to stand up and take notice of it.
I wonder if the ratings are out.
This is the thing, John. I think it probably would have rated well on TV because, well, what else is on? You know.
Well, it wasn't on TV, right? It was. On,
sorry, but I think on Fox.
And
the ratings would have been good. But it's not on free-to-air TV.
Yeah. So, like Friday night, there was nothing on the second. No, so they're only releasing the test. The tests were well watched. But
so the ODIs and the T20 internationals are not on free-to-air TV. But that says something in itself, John. The TV, the free-to-air TV network, Channel 7, has no interest in broadcasting the ODIs or T20Is. So, what does that tell you? This is the frustrating thing with cricket, John. Like, we know what the problem is. The schedule is far too crowded. There's too much of it. But we've just gone through, well, this is what could easily be done to fix it. But yet no action is taken year on year on year. I'm getting sick of there being just February where there's only some meaningless ODIs and T20Is and nothing else, John. So there's a real window in February for a sport like cricket that wants to get it right.
Yeah, if I was Rugby League or AFL, I'd start my trials earlier and fill in the blank. Well, the AFL have that pre-season competition, yeah? When is it starting? The actual season will begin on March the 7th, blah, 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 blah. And then February 21, they'll begin the pre-seasons. So 2 weeks before. Same with Rugby League. They start 2 weeks before.
So you got two sort of periods. Well, the 2 periods we've had where there wasn't much on was at the end of that Cricket World Cup, the back end of November that finished. And then all you had between that and Christmas was just that one test in Perth that Australia won by 360 runs against Pakistan. Then you get your cricket hit and your tennis hit. But once the tennis finishes, all you've got is ODIs and T20Is that no one cares about. and you got to wait until March until the footy starts.
Oh, there's a Super Bowl in February.
Yeah, the Super Bowl.
That's a psyop, government psyop, by the way, this year. I've been getting on the TikToks. The TikToks have told me that.
Yeah, I think that's next week, isn't it? The Super Bowl.
Something like that. Yeah. I'm voting for Joe Biden, thanks to Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
Travis Kelce, yeah. Yeah, so there's that. For people who are not interested in American football, and I'm one of them.
I have no interest.
Yeah, it's just you just go. Yeah, we just got to put up with crappy, really underwhelming cricket for another month.
And Australia's going to go to New Zealand in 2 weeks.
I think the tests are on at the back end of February and early March, I believe.
Like 27th or whatever it was. And then
wouldn't you much rather be watching? I mean, even that, you'd much rather be watching those tests now than waiting until.
That's what.
One of those tests is going to fall when the football's already started.
Three cricket tests against Pakistan, then 3 against the West Indies, and then 3 against New Zealand would have been a damn sight better than what we're getting now. I mean, they do 10 to 12 tests a year or whatever we looked it up before.
Yeah.
That would have mean that almost half of it's gone in February, but, nobody wants to watch cricket in July anyway.
No. That's the thing. Once the football season starts, for most, and I love my cricket, John. I'm an avid cricket watcher, but the only cricket you're really willing to watch once the football season starts is basically the Ashes if it's in England.
Yeah.
Or maybe a 50 over World Cup if it happens to fall during the football season. Apart from those two things, you really just switch off cricket while the football season's running.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why they have to get it right in the months where the football's not on, like February. That's why it's so important for cricket to capitalise on that period of time, because they don't get a look in when the football's on. But they just let themselves down in February, John.
February is the perfect time. Let's fix it, cricket.
Yes.
You need a review, I think. The review will solve everything.
As if Cricket Australia haven't done enough reviews already. That's the thing. If you ask Cricket Australia about all this, if you were to ring them up and ask them, they'd say, oh, look, we'll wait till the end of the season and then we'll do a review. And then by that time, everyone's forgotten about it.
We'll discuss it again next year. The season never ends. Yeah. Just fix it for next year. Moving on in cricket, we got some other news, of course. So a fan has been hit in the face.
Yes.
With a ball. Obviously, it was a 6, I guess. Yeah,
so Sean Abbott actually, in that nice innings of 69 that he made yesterday, he's hit a 6 well over the ropes, and a man's actually stood up with his hands ready to take a crowd catch, but it's gone horribly wrong, John. The ball went straight through his hands and caught him flush on the face, smashing his sunglasses and drawing blood from his cheek. It's all right, John. He's okay. The man's okay. Cricket Australia have confirmed. There you go, John. You got to be careful taking those crowd catches at the cricket. Make sure you take the catch and don't let it slip through your fingers.
Duck. That's one of the funny things I always love, when the ball is in the air and everyone will be like, duck. That's not how ducking works. The ball's coming from the top. I wouldn't want to try and catch a cricket ball at full pelt from any professional cricket player.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about there not being many fans going to the cricket, John, but there were enough there for somebody to get hit in the face, unfortunately.
I would catch a baseball because I got a mitt. Like, I used to play baseball, and I was fine with that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think if you're not confident that you've got the ability to take the catch, then just get out of the way. And when there's only 20,000 in a 50,000 seat stadium, there should be plenty of room for you to get out of the way.
Yeah, 100%.
It's not like there's a full house.
Oh, straight through the thing. That's so. Well, at least he's all right.
Yeah, I thought while we were on the subject of crowds, John, I'd throw that in.
It gives a great highlight for the rest of eternity on TikTok.
Yeah, I'm sure it's got a lot of views.
And you touched on Travis Head being released, actually. So you mentioned there's some batting. Oh God, I've got to update my drivers. So Travis Head's been released immediately?
Yeah, so he's been released from Australia's white ball squads to have a rest ahead of that tour to New Zealand that we talked about.
So he's missing one game, I mean.
Oh, no, well, so he played the first ODI on Friday night, but he didn't play yesterday, and he's not going to play tomorrow against the West Indies in that third ODI, and he's not going to play any of the 3 2020s against the West Indies either. So he's not having a good time of it at the moment, Travis Head, John. He's faced just 7 balls across his last 3 international innings for a total of 4 runs. Made that king pair in that second test loss to the West Indies at the Gabba. He opened the batting. You mentioned Steve Smith didn't open. It was because Travis Head was opening. And he hit the first ball for 4, but that was all he made, John. He was out 5th ball for 4. It was on a flat pitch. So no real excuses there, John. A batting wicket. Yeah, that first test against New Zealand begins in Wellington on February 29, John. I think they are only playing the 3 T20s going into that test series. That starts on Feb 21.
Yeah, they do finish the ODIs and do T20s, then go to New Zealand,
then they do the 3 2020s, then the tests.
Yep.
Would have been nice if they had the tests on first, so they'd be on before the football season starts. But anyway,
that's going to directly conflict. Like that will directly be competing.
Yeah, well, that first test, February 29, it's going to fall on the Vegas doubleheader weekend.
Yeah.
So. But I mean, of course, the New Zealand cricket body is not going to be thinking about what NRL games are on.
And so we'll actually be starting. So my understanding is the Vegas doubleheader starts at like 1:30 p.m. And because that'll be in New Zealand, the day of cricket will be starting around that time too.
No. So in New Zealand, what happens, John, is because they're 2 hours in front. The test day actually just runs like a working day, so it's not great if you've got work. It's sort of because it would start at 11 a.m. In New Zealand, so it's usually a 9 a.m. start here, and it runs till 4 in the afternoon.
Oh.
So if you don't have a day off work, you don't get to see much cricket if there's a test in New Zealand.
Oh, yeah, because it's backwards. So it's backwards. They start earlier than us.
They're
the only country that's in the future.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so... Yeah, on those days, so I'll finish around 4 p.m. So cricket's wrapping up as the second game starts on the Saturday.
Are you talking about the NRL?
Yeah.
So they'll be on at the same time, John. If it's 1:30 in the afternoon,
they
will. So there will be a clash between that NRL doubleheader and that first test against the Black Caps.
I'm pretty sure it was 1:30.
Which starts on February 29.
It's called Round Zero. It's doing annoying things for the tipping comps.
It would.
There it is. So it's Round Zero and the tipping comp because it's a week before. So Sunday at 1:30 p.m. is the Sea Eagles and Rabbitohs.
So Feb 29 it starts. So that would mean it starts on the Thursday. So that would be day 4 of that first test will clash with the NRL doubleheader, John.
Well, if it's getting interesting, it's going to be kind of annoying to watch the...
Yeah, absolutely. I have to have 2 TVs, John.
Yes, my KO. I might have to plug a computer in to watch.
But for me, John, the NRL doubleheader will take priority.
Absolutely.
If I have to choose between the two, I'm watching the
100%.
NRL doubleheader over the test against New Zealand.
Even if Travis Head is playing, I'm going to watch the NRL doubleheader for sure. I'm going to get the boys together and we're going to watch it. I got to organise that. Oh, I better organise that soon. And Ricky Ponting's got a new job.
Oh, yeah, he hasn't signed on yet, John, but he's expressed his interest in coaching a 2020 franchise in the Major League Cricket competition later this year. So that's the US 2020 League, John. So he's been linked to coach the Washington Freedom.
It's a very American name.
Yeah, very much so, yeah. They had a good season in 2023. Ponting's had plenty of coaching experience. He's coached the Delhi Capitals in the IPL for the last 5 years. And he's worked with the Hobart Hurricanes and with Cricket Australia as well. So, yeah, it's going to be held in the United States and the West Indies, the Major League Cricket this year, Jordan. Washington finished 3rd in the inaugural MLC season. So I think Ponting's just a bit worried about having to spend that much time away from his family, John. I think that's a bit of a stumbling block at the moment for it. But look, I think it'd be great for the game to have a huge name like Ricky Ponting coaching the Washington Freedom.
Just move there. Americans give this sports visa thingy that's like they just, if you get a sports visa, you get to basically stay forever as long as you're involved in a sporting team, something like that. I know a couple of people who have sporting visas, and they just seem to stay in America forever. So
I guess if he's coaching in the IPL as well. So that's going to be a fair bit if he's going straight from the IPL. I think it might be. The MLC is immediattle after the World Cup. That T20 World Cup that's in America. That's in America. Will be after. So, a lot on for Ponting there, John.
Yeah.
But I mean, he showed his expertise as a commentator. No shortage of options in his retirement from cricket for Ricky Ponting.
It's good if, that's the kind of thing that'll help grow the game. I always talk about, if it's popular in America, it'll be popular around the world. America will put money behind it and become the best in the world. Sean Strickland. Whatever sport you want. If America loves it and they put all the money in it, they'll become the best in the world. Thanks for that quote, Sean Strickland. That'd be really cool. It would be hard if he's going IPL, then straight from IPL to the World Cup, then straight after that's hanging around in America, and then won't be back in Australia till September or something.
Yeah, so just to clear that, so it's the IPL. He's got a bit of time now before the IPL, and then he's got the IPL that rolls into the 2020 World Cup, and then the MLC is immediately after the World Cup. Yeah,
so he'll be gone for months. And he does have a family, so but we'll see what happens with that. Keep you updated. So I saw this under-19 World Cup. Johnny Bairstow's starting that. Can England write a book about this one? Stuart Broad's obviously got something to say about it. So what were the circumstances? So what's happened was in this under-19 Cricket World Cup, it was, I think it was it South? Yeah, it was South Africa against Zimbabwe in the under-19 World. Actually, no, sorry. I think it might have been. England. It was England against Zimbabwe, and it was in South Africa. So what happened was a batsman has played a ball that got trapped under his foot. Yeah.
And the ball was stationary, and the batsman's picked the ball up and handed it back to his opponent. But the Zimbabwe team have appealed to the umpire for the ball being handled without permission while the ball was live. And he was given out. I guess people like Stuart Broad have reacted. Stuart Broad said, get a grip. He's passing a stationary ball back to the fielder, doing him a favour. Can't give that out. So I think that's got Stuart Broad's nose out of joint. The fact that the ball was stationary, so the ball's clearly not in play, and he's picked it up and given it to the fielder. They've appealed and it's been given out.
This is going to ruin English cricket for another year.
Yeah.
They just gotten over their Ashes, Johnny Bairstow stumping, and now they've got this one.
Yeah, so it was an England batsman here, Hamza Sheikh, England batsman.
Yeah.
Hamza Sheikh against Zimbabwe, played at Potchefstroom in South Africa. So the laws of the game do cover the incident, John. So 37.1.1, either batter is out obstructing the field except in the circumstances of 37.2, and while the ball is in play, she willfully attempts to obstruct or distract the fielding side by word or action. See also Law 34, hit the ball twice. 37.1.2, the striker is out obstructing the field except in the circumstances of 37.2, in the act of receiving a ball delivered by the bowler, she willfully strikes the ball with the hand not holding the bat. This will apply whether it is the first strike or second or subsequent strike. The act of receiving the ball shall extend both to playing at the ball and to striking the ball more than once in defence of her wicket. So, I think what covers this, John, is where that part of the law which says and while the ball is in play, she willfully attempts to obstruct or distract the fielding side by word or action. In this case, the action of picking the ball up and throwing it back to the fielder. But is this not where the umpire needs to have a bit more common sense? I mean, it does say in the law, she willfully attempts to obstruct. If the ball's dead and you're just handing it back to the fielder, that's not willfully obstructing the field, John. And that's where the well, why isn't more heat on the umpire for giving that out?
I've got here for 37.4 for the clarification of exactly what you're talking about. Either batter is out obstructing the field if at any time while the ball is in play and without the consent of a fielder, he/she uses the bat or any part of his/her person to return the ball to any fielder. So he motions that he's going to pick up the ball and no fielder says, cool, yeah, okay. And then he picks up the ball and hands it back. So technically, he's out. And, they're bringing in the spirit of the game thing again. Like, it is obviously it's up to the umpire.
But yeah, this is the issue with cricket, isn't it? I mean, and I saw what Michael Vaughan and Mark Wall were saying about it on Fox. They brought this up in the break yesterday. And they both said, "Oh, that's a disgrace. It shouldn't have been given out." And then you go, "Yeah, but it's the rules. You got to look at the rules here."
If you watch it, they knew straight away, right? Yeah, we can watch it on the thing, right? Have you seen it? Like they knew straight away. The Zimbabwean cricket team, right?
Yeah.
So he hits it, he picks it up, and he goes up. He's out straight away. So yeah, what's his name? Hamza gestured that he's going to pick it up. The Zimbabwean wicketkeeper didn't say, yep, cool. Hamza picked it up and threw it to him, and straight away the arms went in the air like, oh, he's out! Yeah. So they knew what they were doing, though. That was the thing. They knew what they were doing, the Zimbabweans.
In what I read out, for some reason, it didn't include that consent of the fielder.
Yeah, because that's 37.4. Yeah, right. Yeah, so it must be like a long... These cricket rules are long, and this is rule 37.4.
So that's an important point, the consent of the fielder. And that's where you go, well, all right, well, he didn't have the consent of the fielder, and he's appealed, and under the laws, it's been given out.
So this is that's what I mean. You can watch on the vision. They knew what they were doing. He didn't give permission, and as soon as Hamza leans down to pick up the ball and throw it to the keeper's arms both straight away go up in the air. So he knew what he was doing, exploiting the rules. So spirit of the game, blah 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 blah. What you have to do as a batsman now is, I'm going to pick it up and then stand and wait, until you get the thumbs up, yes, whatever. Okay, cool, now I'll pick it up. I'm sure you can go through and find dozens and dozens and dozens of clips of batsmen picking up the ball and passing it without getting permission and them not appealing. But in this specific case, they knew exactly what they were doing. Mm-hmm. You can totally tell. They knew exactly what they were doing. Hamza says, I'll get it. And then leans down to pick it up. As soon as he picks it up, and throws it to the keeper, keeps his arms going in the air. So he knew the rule. I don't have to give, if I don't give permission here, I can get him out. And so he didn't give permission and got him out. You can go on about spirit of the game, but the rules make the spirit of the game.
And shouldn't it be, shouldn't they leave it more, shouldn't a rule like this be more sort of left to the discretion of the umpire?
Yeah.
Like the umpire can look at it and go, Look, is this reasonable or not? He's clearly just picked it up to give it back to the fieldsman, doing them a favour. The umpire should be left, I think, a lot to the umpire's discretion in that instance. Just use a bit of common sense, seriously. But also, John, these ex-players saying, it's a disgrace that they appealed and everything, why aren't they saying that the rules should be changed?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why aren't they saying the rules should be overhauled? Go through the cricket law book with a fine-tooth comb, all the 37.1, 37.2, 37.3, 4, go on. Go through it with a fine-tooth comb and make some alterations rather than just blowing up every time a player just acts to the rule book, as these players have here.
There's laws in the world that are just nonsense, and they come up, and you can go on the internet and search for them, like ridiculous laws that exist in different states, territories, stuff like that. And they never get used. and then, they'll just find them and be like, oh, we should probably remove this law. It's hard to remove a law. It's not so hard to remove change a cricket rule. But they have the complexity of the rules. Like, you just went through 37.1, 37.2, 37.3, and then in one random news article I found 37.4 is the specific, like, how many words? It's a very limited number of words without the consent of a fielder. 6 words in that massive amount of text that make it like, well, that's the rule. 6 words. And all they really have to do is change those 6 words to based on the discretion of the referee.
Yeah.
Based on, and it's not the player's fault.
And then the umpire can look at it and go, look, what was this batsman doing? What is he can ask himself the question, was this batsman really obstructing the field? Well, no, he wasn't. The ball was under his foot. No fielders were around making any effort to get to the
safe.
ball.
Both batters were safe.
Both batters were in their crease. The fielders were making no attempt to get to the ball.
Yeah.
So clearly this was an example where at the umpire's discretion, he could have gone, oh, I'm not giving that out. You're kidding yourself. It's not as if the batsman made sure that he had a race to the ball with the fielder, grabbed the ball before the fielder could get to it. In that instance, the obstructing a field would be a real issue, but not in the instance that played out at this Under-19 World Cup. He's just clearly given him a ball, wanting to give him the ball back, a ball that he's making no effort to get to, that's right under his foot with the batter in his crease.
Yeah, there's rules in sport are really funny. I go through it all the time, and I do a yearly rules seminar to update my like a referees rules seminar with the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation official thing. I have a certificate and stuff like that. That to update my rules knowledge and make sure I'm up to date. And there's a funny thing about rules, right? There's 2 kinds of ways that players play the game. They either follow the letter of the law, like this wicketkeeper did. He knew the rule, didn't have permission, so he exploited that rule. It's not against the spirit of the game, it's in the rules. The other one is whether it's explicitly left out of the rules, right? So in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, at one of the rules seminars I went to, the guy was really funny. Shout out to Pablo from the IBJJF. He said, it's not explicitly against the rules to stick your finger in your opponent's ear. Because the rule states you're not allowed to stick your finger in anywhere on the face or in the butt. You're not allowed to oil check. It's a wrestling move, like the oil check, right? But it doesn't explicitly say you can't stick your finger in the ears. So go ahead and stick your finger in the ear. Until we get enough things to explicitly say you can't stick the finger in the ear, then we're not going to add it into the rules. But I always tell all my competitors, don't stick your fingers in people's ears, please. That's one of the guys that teaches me says, like, when you do stuff like that, you're inviting your opponent to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And so that's it. Like, it's one of those things. Like, James Maloney used to take the shoes off his opponents, and he threw one in the chook pen while I was there. We passed the shoe around and took a while to give it back. It wasn't in the rules, and so they added it explicitly to the rules. You're not allowed to take it. But things like, I remember years and years ago, Matty Head caught a ball on the full. And he took a really massive step backwards to put his foot out in the in-goal and caught the ball. And that's like, then it's out on the full because his foot was out. And the commentary said he clearly knows the rules. Just because you exploit a rule that exists doesn't mean it's against the spirit of the game. More, I think, against the spirit of the game is that stuff that is like, it doesn't explicitly say it in the rules, so I'm going to do it. Like taking the shoes off your finger, sticking your finger in the ear. Those things are against the spirit of the game. In this example, the player just knew the rules better than everyone else, but clearly better than Steel Broad. As you said, if they think it's against the spirit of the game, petition to get the rules changed.
Yeah, because every time, and we're going to talk about Angelo Matthews in a moment, who's got himself out in a bizarre way yet again. But he was timed out in the World Cup, So we had that situation where the fielding side appealed because the batsman wasn't there in time, and he was given out under the rules. And then all the commentators blew up at the fielding team for appealing, even though what they did was completely according to the rules. a batsman has to get out there in a certain amount of time. If there's no rule on how long a batsman can take to get out there, it could take them 5 or 10 minutes to get out there. You have to have a rule in there that in 2 minutes a batsman has to be out there ready to face the first ball. And
sports can change the rules to improve the game to prevent things like this. The shot clock in basketball is a classic one. You know why the shot clock exists? Because basketball is a pretty high-scoring game. Like, I went to a game recently that was like 89-80 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Whenever the shot clock was introduced, I can't remember the years or even the periods, like 60s or 70s or whatever. It was introduced because teams would score and then just hold the ball, pass it between themselves. And there was games in basketball that were like 18-3. Because it was just the teams holding the ball. So they introduced a shot clock because that was against the spirit of the game. Like, the basketball's supposed to be high scoring. The whole thing of it was to be high scoring. It's against the spirit of the game. So they changed the rules by introducing the shot clock. You've got a limited amount of time to hold onto the ball before you have to shoot. Because of the spirit of the game. And if you want to go on about like this is against the spirit of the game, change the rules. That's it. Change the rules.
Yeah. So you have the Matthews situation where the fielding team act in accordance with the rules. He wasn't out there when he was supposed to be. Within the 2 minutes they appealed, he was given out. Then the commentators blow up about the fielding team appealing, make no mention of the rules. That they make it about the fielding team. Or how dare they appeal? This instance, the player picking the ball up, like you said, the key line in the rule book was with the consent of the fielding team. He didn't have the consent of the fielding team, so he picks up the ball and throws it to them. They appeal. He's given out under the rules. Then the commentators blow up and say it's a disgrace that the fielding team appealed and it was given out. So every time one of these things happens, the commentators blow up and say that the fielding team are a disgrace and make no mention whatsoever of the rules needing to be changed to address these problems.
Yeah, change the rules. Spirit of the game is dictated by the rules.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you don't like the spirit of the game, change the rules.
Yeah. Rather than have the commentators blow up at the fielding team at every individual instance of something like this.
They had one in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right, where it used to be... So if you're taking someone down and they fall out, like they go out, you don't get the takedown points, okay? And so what was happening is... people would like intentionally fight their takedown until they would go out. So you're going to get taken down, you're going to lose your 2 points. And so what you do, if you go out, you start in the middle again at an equal footing, right? Yeah. And so people would like fully mess with it and intentionally go out. So what they started to do, they changed the rules because that was against the spirit of the game, fleeing a fight, right? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tries to emulate a fight. So they made it, if you do that intentionally, your opponent gets 2 points, like as if they completed a takedown, and you get a penalty. Okay, so it's even worse than getting a takedown because it's against the spirit of the game. So they changed the rules. So if you're going to get taken down, I coach people all the time. If you're going to get taken down, don't flee the mat, take the takedown. If if you're 100% certain that the person who's fighting you're going to get taken down, don't intentionally flee the mat because you're better off getting taken down than intentionally fleeing the mat, losing your 2 points and getting a penalty. Like, it's worse. That's how you fix the spirit of the game. It happened like once in a major event where it was a Black Belt World Championship and Leandro Lo, rest in peace, he did it. And he lost the match, you know by how much? 2 points and 1 penalty. So it's like, and everybody looks at it and goes, well, I'm never going to do that. Like, it's the thing, like.
And it was the same, we've talked about the timed out dismissal at the World Cup, this under-19 one that's just happened. It was the same with Alex Carey and Johnny Bairstow in the Ashes.
That's the rule.
Johnny Bairstow was out of his crease. You've got to be in your crease. That's the rule. Back then, the commentators blew up about Alex Carey, copped it no end on social media, copped it from English commentators in particular.
Wrote a book about it.
So every time something like this happens in cricket, it gets made about whoever's appealed, gets made to be this, made out to be this massive villain. And so every time there's an individual instance of it, that's what happens. Demonise the fielding team for appealing, for doing what, is just gamesmanship, really. Appealing, wanting someone to be out. Rather than... and these commentators make no mention of the fact that, well, maybe you need to change the rules. to fall in line with these spirit of the game arguments that you keep making at each individual instance.
Just change the rules, man. Like, honestly. But what did happen to Angelo Matthews, actually, because, as you said, he got timed out. We had a discussion about it at the time. It was part of the rules. He foolishly didn't put his clothes on. His, what was it? His helmet strap was broken.
Yeah.
And like we said at the time, every single equipment manager will now be checking helmet straps before they hand out helmets.
But that's his problem, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's his job to get that right.
It was his fault, yeah. So what happened to him this time?
That's the thing. So why... I don't know. I don't want to get too caught up on that. We'll move on to this next thing. But why weren't those commentators who were blowing up? I think it was Bangladesh who Sri Lanka were playing in that match. Why won't rather than blowing up about the Bangladesh players who just appealed when he didn't turn up on time? All these commentators did was blow up about those Bangladesh fieldsmen and them being bad sports and everything. Why weren't they blowing up at Matthews for not having his helmet strapped ready?
His equipment manager who gave it to him. They have
that's where the accountability should have lied.
Absolutely.
Not with the Bangladesh fieldsmen who were just doing their job.
Know the rules, man. I coach a lot of people, and one of the first things I always tell people, know the rules. Learn the rules. I had a guy a couple of weeks ago, who lost his first match. Now, it was really funny. He won his first match, and he was not arguing, but discussing with me why he didn't get as many points as he thought he did in the jiu-jitsu match. And then I told him, first half of that match has no points. And I said, I didn't know that. Like, why would you not know the rules? Then he went to his next match. His first match was in gi and no gi, and his next match was in gi. And he lost his first match in gi because he thought there was no points in the first half. And he let the guy score points. Why did you let him score points? There's no points in the first half. Look at the scoreboard. Know the rules. Yeah. So,
especially in professional sport.
Yeah, you want to know the rules. And if there is a way to exploit the rules to win, exploit the rules. That's what you have to do. It
should be part of training for professional sports people. You got to have a rule book. Research the rule book.
I have a certificate that says I know the rules. Yeah. And I do them every year. Every year. I do get a certificate that says you know the rules. Should be
any professional cricket team who signs a player, first thing they should be doing is, all right, there's your rule book. Make sure you know it off by heart.
There was actually a funny thing. Remember Wes Nagama? So there was a funny thing about when he first started playing for the Dragons, and he tripped someone and got suspended, and their argument in the appeal was he didn't know the rules. Wasn't accepted.
Any player who signs a contract for the first time, first thing you have to do, there's your rule book, go through your rule book, make sure you know it off by heart. And any changes to the rules, all your players should be informed. This is the rule.
It's an update. Like I said, I do a seminar every year for jiu-jitsu. And I get updated. There's new rules this year that I've already, first thing I did when they announced new rules, I messaged the organizer for IBJJF in Australia. I said, hey, man, when are they going to do a local Australian rules seminar? And he replied and said it'll be whatever day it was in March. Hasn't been announced yet, but I know you're going to do it. And then as soon as a minute before it was announced, he sent me the link. And I signed up. Because I have to update my rules. I have to know the rules. Know the rules, man.
Maybe, say you got an NRL team, for example, John. Maybe they should have, a rules sort of seminar.
That's what
once a month. All right, these are the rules. Go through it with a fine.
So in jiu-jitsu, you do the rules seminar, then they send you a test you have to complete, and you have to get 85% on the test. And it gives me, I do some refereeing sometimes just to get the experience of understanding what it's like to be a referee, which would be great for NRL players, all sports players as well, because like I said, I know the rules off by heart. Everybody messages me around Australia, followers and stuff on Instagram for jiu-jitsu about rules. Sends me videos and says, what do you think of this? If I don't know, I have a group of other referees, the highest level referees. And I'm not even wouldn't be considered a ranked referee. The top 5 referees in Australia, I message them and I go, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? I expand my knowledge, right? But actually, when you are reffing in the spot, Everybody makes mistakes.
Yeah.
I very rarely complain about refs in rugby league anymore since I started refereeing jiu-jitsu. But the one most important takeaway from all of it is know the rules. You have to know the rules. And if you don't know the rules, get clarification about the rules. You have to. And so, yeah, it's not any of these guys' fault for knowing the rules. It's the rules' fault for having the rule there.
Yep, absolutely.
So, what happened to Angelo Matthews?
Yeah, so Matthews... So what's happened, John? This is more, what happened was he actually, interestingly, he hit a ball for 4 and he was out on the same ball because as he swung, he's chased a ball that was, I think, wide outside his leg stump and he's pulled it across and hit it for 4. But as he's pulled the ball across, he's come back and hit his stumps with his bat.
Oh, no.
So he's got himself out, hit wicket. Yeah, very strange. I can't remember ever seeing one like that, John.
Only in the backyard.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So it was a long hop, and he's hit it to the fine leg boundary, and on his follow through, lost his balance and hit the stumps with his bat. So that's the first time in his international career he's been out hit wicket. Yeah, we talked about how he was timed out in that World Cup match. But he did. I mean, that came on the last ball of the day as well. He was out for 141.
God, this guy.
Sri Lanka playing against Afghanistan in Colombo in a one-off test. So at least he did his job before that. John made 141, put on 232, a record 232 fourth wicket partnership with Dinesh Chandimal as well. But yeah, Angelo Matthews just getting himself into a couple of very unusual situations in the last few months.
He's the new Glenn Maxwell. You
can be sure if there's a bizarre cricketing dismissal, Angelo Matthews will be involved, or Alex Carey and Johnny Bairstow.
That's just strange. Yeah, he's the new Glenn Maxwell. Cool. We always need one of them in the world. So that's cricket for the week. Yes. We're going to move on to Rugby League and to continuing the theme. We're going to do our, honestly, guys, just our opinion. 9th and 8th place Rabbitohs and Raiders this week, just to fill in some time. So producer Pyle, who's with us today, is going to cut 2 videos for us this week.
Cool.
So honestly, guys, it's just our opinion. A preview for the 2023 9th place Rabbitohs, where and how they will go in 2024. Now, they've gained no one but everyone, right? They've gained Jack White and Sean Kepi from the Manly Sea Eagles. But that's their gains. Losses, they've lost no one when compared, I think. So they've lost Jed Cartwright, Liam Knight, Hame Seli, who went to the Dragons, and Blake Taff.
Yes.
Poor Sally. They've obviously done some re-signings like Damien Cook, Campbell Graham, Jai Arrow, Jacob Host, Cameron Murray, Tavita Tola, Cody Walker, Latrell Mitchell signed to 2027. This will be Jason Demetriou's 3rd year in charge. First year he lost to the Panthers in the prelims after being ahead 12-0, so a bit of a choke there. Obviously, Panthers went on to win that grand final. Second year, missed out. So
yeah, and that was after they led the competition after 11 rounds last year, John. They won 8 of their first 11 games, but then they only won 4 of their last 13 to finish 9th, a 12-win, 12-loss record. Now, I think Demetrio he's under huge pressure, John. I know he's been re-signed until the end of 2026. But I think that re-signing of him is more about having stability in the camp than his ability as a first-grade coach so far. This is a star-studded roster, and he's missed the top 8, John. Not only that, I found it staggering, John. That I know there were those reports that in that whole Latrell Mitchell drama last year, where Sam Burgess felt like he and Cody Walker were receiving preferential treatment from Demetriou. We had this situation where Russell Crowe essentially sided with Demetriou ahead of Sam Burgess. Sam Burgess is like a son to him. Sam Burgess won the Clive Churchill Medal in South Sydney's only premiership in recent memory in 2014. Sam Burgess has had Russell Russell Crowe's had Sam Burgess on his movie sets before. He met him on. I think he met with him on the movie set of Robin Hood, I believe.
Yeah.
So for Russell Crowe to essentially, by hanging up on Sam Burgess, to side with Demetrio over Sam Burgess is just staggering to me, John.
Yeah,
considering he didn't make the 8 last year.
Demetrio was the assistant when Wayne Bennett was there. I think he coached in the Super League as well, if I'm not wrong. And then was mentored by Wayne Bennett to take over. So he also interim coached in 2022. Okay. No, he coached at the Keighley Cougars with a winning percentage of 61%. Look, yeah, he's one of those ones that's under massive pressure. If the Rabbitohs don't start well, his job could be on the line. If they don't finish well, I'd say his job would be over.
I think if they don't make the 8, I think he's gone. I think they'll have a new coach in 2025.
I did mention the rumour a few months ago that Sam Burgess is waiting in the wings to take over. He's obviously gone over to England to coach some English team. I can't remember who.
I think it was at Warrington, John.
Something like that.
I'll maybe double check.
Yeah. Man, he's jacked. He's gone over to coach Warrington. Yep, so he'll coach Warrington in 2024.
Yes.
And there's the rumours that he's waiting in the wings for Jason Demetriou to fail so he can come and take over. I think Jason Demetriou is your most under pressure coach, to be honest. He's as you said, he's got a star-studded lineup. Do you have a team there?
Yes, I do. So my round 1 team, John, got Latrell Mitchell at fullback, obviously, Alex Johnston and Tyrone Munro on the wings, Isaiah Tass and Campbell Graham in the centres. I've got Cody Walker and Lachlan Ilias in the halves, obviously, Tavita, Totola and Sean Kepi, that new recruit Sean Kepi, in the front row, John. Damien Cook at hooker. Keon Colin-Matungi and Jai Arrow are your second rowers. Cam Murray, the captain, at lock. On the bench, I've got Saliva Havili, Tom Burgess, Davi Moali, and Tallis Duncan. So I think they're a bit thin on the bench, John, but the starting 13 looks pretty good to me. John, you've also got in your notes there that they've got a really tough draw.
Yeah, they've got the toughest draw out of everyone. So they play the top 8 teams 13 times. So half of their matches are top 8 teams. Well, 2023 top 8 teams. Top 4 teams 7 times. Like, you look at who they play twice. Broncos, Sharks, Sea Eagles, Storm, Eels, Panthers, Roosters, Tigers. Not only do they play top 8 teams 13 times, they've got the hardest of them. So Broncos, Storm, Panthers, Roosters. Plus they've got the Sharks. Plus they've got the Sea Eagles, who we both had in the 8. Plus they've got the Eels, who we both had in the 8. Basically, more than half of their season is playing near powerhouse teams, or middle of the road powerhouse teams, but actual powerhouse teams. They play bottom 4 teams only 5 times, and 2 of those are the Tigers. It's a tough draw. They've also got a pretty tough opening 6 rounds, which could put them on the back foot for the whole year. Opening in Seagulls, obviously in Vegas. Then they return to Australia, and they're going to be hungover from that. Every team that's going there is going to be hungover, but luckily they're playing the Broncos, who will also be in Vegas, and then the Roosters. So that's 3 away games. Then they got 3 home with the Bulldogs, a little bit easier. Warriors, which, Warriors no longer an issue in Australia, and then the Sharks. So that's a shocking opening 6 rounds, like first quarter of the year.
I wouldn't be reading too much into Demetrio being signed until the end of 2026. That's just there as a security measure. 100%. If they don't make the 8 this year, I think he's gone. South will just pay out the last 2 years of his contract. They got deep pockets. They won't worry about a contract payout for a coach. John, the other, you mentioned if Demetrio's, I guess, the most under pressure at South, which he probably is, the next most under pressure person there, I think, is our friend Latrell Mitchell. Last year, it was just It was just one distraction after another, John. I think it's a big year for Latrell Mitchell. He's got to get his mind back on the job, John. When you've got a club legend like Sam Burgess walking out of the club because he believes Latrell Mitchell has been given preferential treatment, well, then the alarm bells should be ringing, John. Not to mention the fact that there was vision of him not chasing for players in defence towards the back end of last year. We had that situation where he had that disagreement with Cam Murray in that video session. Latrell said to Cam Murray, "When I call for it, give it to me." Murray replied, "Well, most of the time, you're not there." We didn't even know if he was really injured at the end of last year. Johnny said he had a finger injury, pulled out of the Kangaroo squad, and then you see him going around in the Koori knockout tournament. What is this, John? This is just a circus. He needs to get his mind back on the job. He hasn't played for New South Wales either since 2021. I know he said he's had injuries, and we don't know how legitimate those injuries have been, but is he invested in New South Wales at origin level as well? There's a lot of question marks over Latrell going into this season, John. We need him to really switch on and get his mind back on the job.
And as I said, he re-signed this year till 2027. Alongside partner in crime Cody Walker, who re-signed to 2025. He's obviously the linchpin. Everybody knows it. He's the key to South Sydney's progression, where they'll finish, everything. And it's not just on the field. It's the off-field stuff. Now, as we always say, they'll always go on about how we don't let off-field drama affect us. Then why is your team going badly when there's off-field drama? So his on-the-field play has to be better. His off-the-field behaviour has to be better. He has to show he's dedicated to football, dedicated to the Rabbitohs.
Stop blowing up on social media every second day about matters that have nothing to do with football, and maybe spend a lot more time focusing on your football this year, mate. You need to, because your mind has been everywhere else in the last 12 months. It's time to switch back on and make football your absolute priority this
100%. And if he does, Rabbitohs could go all the way.
Yeah.
That's the thing. He's the linchpin, the thing that gets them going.
So the problem is, John, remember we had Rod Churchill, the son of Clive, who went way too far in that text message and called him a cancer, which was just ridiculous. That's no way to speak about someone. The problem was that then you had people like Andrew Webster, the journalist, who got stuck right into Rod Churchill for that comment, which is fair enough on its own. But then he said, "Oh, look, I'm not going to hold him accountable." So because one person went way too far in their criticism, all these journalists just latched onto that rather than holding Latrell to the account that he should have been held to throughout much of that back end of the season.
There was a massive amount of hypocrisy in that behaviour, because it was like, it's not my job to hold Latrell accountable.
But he holds Rod Churchill accountable.
Yeah, exactly. So it was, like we said at the time, it was too far. But the fact that it was there because there were issues. You know, that whole thing was because there was issues. We're gonna have to see if they start well. They're gonna dominate the Dragons in the Charity Shield. They do every year, which is, I think, on the 17th. Yes, the 17th. I might actually go watch it. We'll see if I can get some time off, and go watch the Charity Shield, because I haven't done that since, I think, 2007.
That's a long time ago.
It's a whole sordid story for that. But look, they've also got a tough run home. This is the thing. Their draw sucks, and you got to have your best players playing their best, so you can do your best if your draw sucks as much as this. They're not going to have an easy ride. They've got last 6 games is Sharks away, second, Storm, Tigers, Knights. If Knights are on another run, they finish up the season with Panthers and Roosters. They're going to start difficult. They're going to have a pretty hard run through the middle, and they're going to finish super difficult. So if they're not playing well, they'll go nowhere. But that said, if Latrell Mitchell has his mind on football, plays well, sets up the team well, all the rest of the guys follow around him, there's no off-field drama, they can do exceptionally well.
It's just the last thing on Latrell before we give our opinion on where they're going to finish this year, John. It's really dangerous when a player, all those things I mentioned before with Latrell, and then he wasn't really held to account by the media at all. And according to Sam Burgess, even his coach isn't holding him accountable. So that can be really dangerous, and a player knows he can get away with all of that and not be held accountable. You're creating a really dangerous environment there. So we're hoping that he can really switch back on this year, John. But anyway, John, I've got them. Oh, sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say that every New South Welshman wants to see a fit and firing Latrell smashing the opposition and then coming and playing for New South Wales.
Yeah. Well, they need him, John. He hasn't played for New South Wales since 2021. That was the last time New South Wales won a series. They lost in 2022, lost in 2023, and it cost the coach his job.
Yeah.
So that's the impact that
he can have.
having.
And he had a good year that year. You know, they made it to the finals. Yeah. Anyway, so where you got them finishing?
I've got them 8th, John.
Oh, that's nice of you.
I've got them scraping in. I had a look at I don't know if you want to look at their premiership odds at all, John, but I think they're actually quite high up on the betting odds.
Because they haven't had any drama for a while, so they might be training
well.
The
bookies I think the bookies have got them in the top 4, John. I wasn't willing to go that far, John, because you've mentioned that they've got the toughest draw of any team.
Yep. So they're paying $12. They're 4th favourite.
Yeah. So I wasn't willing to go along with that, John. But that having been said, I mean, you mentioned their terrible draw that they have, but I've got them scraping into the 8, John. I think they've got too good at 1 to 13, assuming they don't get any injuries. Their 1 to 13 is too good to not play finals 2 years in a row.
I actually have them at the same place.
Okay.
And it's mainly because of that. Like they just missed out based on the final round last year as well, remember? Even with all their drama. So it's possible for them to get there, and I don't think we talked about a couple of teams in the past couple of weeks that are like they can either be in the 8 or be at the bottom. I think the Rabbitohs can either be in the 8 or be in the 4. Like that's the way they'll go this year. I'm putting them at 8th because of other things, but I wouldn't be surprised if they make the top 4 actually. I think, as an expert, that they'll scrape into the 8, and that'll save Dimitri's job. But they definitely have the possibility to make the 4, and I can see why they're 4th favourite to win the premiership, just based on their team.
Yeah. But I don't know if there's a reason why I'm just not willing to go that far and put them in the top 4. It's just it's because Latrell Mitchell's too unpredictable.
Yeah, he could. That's what I mean.
You don't know what he's going to do.
If there had been no drama all year, this year would be sitting there going, I think they're 3rd, you know? But what we do know with 100% certainty is at any time throughout the next 6 months, something can happen with Latrell Mitchell that will blow up the whole team.
He's Donald Trump and Nick Kyrgios all rolled into one, John. But that's the thing, John. If we were to sit here and go, Latrell Mitchell will play every game this season and there'll be no dramas, then you can absolutely go, yeah, all right, I've got them in my top 4. Yeah. But you can't do it because you don't know that.
Yeah,
it's too unpredictable.
When you're predicting these things, you're basically placing a bet. You got to be as safest as you can with your bet because you bet with your head, not over it.
Yeah,
so that's my thing. Yeah. Like I'm not. I can't bet on there being no drama that causes the Rabbitohs to lose spots.
But you can't bet on that, but you also look at their team and go, well, there's got to be a spot in the 8 for them somewhere.
Exactly. So that's, honestly, guys, just our opinion for the Rabbitohs. And now it's time for, honestly, guys, it's just our opinion, the 2023 8th place Raiders preview for 2024. Now, just quickly on that, we've got both Dan and I, Dan has 5th through 8th covered in his top 8, and I've got 6th through 8th covered in my top 8. So I'm going to be really interested to see where you've dropped the Raiders. Yeah. Their gains for the year is Zach Hosking, Simi Sasagi, Morgan Smithies, and Kyo Weeks.
Not much doing there, John.
Their losses, Jared Croker, Matt Frawley, Brad Schneider, Harley Smith-Shields, Sammy Valamai, and Jack Whiten.
Yeah, so the 3 that we're looking at clearly there, or the 2 that really stand out are Jack Whiten and Jared Croker.
They lost their centres.
Yeah. And you could also, maybe as a third wheel there, you'd throw Sammy Valamai onto the end of that, John. That's 3 really big losses they have and not really any gains of note, John, to be totally honest. So I think that's really going to put them in a real spot, John. I think they were fortunate last year to scrape into the 8, and that's all they did. They scraped into the 8.
Yeah, they lost a bunch of their last matches.
Yeah, lost in that first week of the finals, in that thrilling extra time final against Newcastle. But yeah, I think, and I think last year, from memory, they had a pretty soft draw as well. They had a very fortunate run with the draw last year.
So one of the things about the Raiders is they always have an easy draw with a lot of rests, even though they complain about not getting many Friday games and stuff like that. Okay, so they've got the 6th easiest draw this year. Again, pretty soft draw. 11 top 8 teams with 5 top 4 teams, but the teams they play twice is very telling. Okay, so it's Bulldogs, Sharks, Sea Eagles, Knights, Cowboys, Roosters, Warriors, Tigers. Obviously, the top 8 teams that they're playing, Roosters, Warriors, Sharks, they're the ones they're playing, and Knights, they're playing twice. Knights were, they made it into the 8 on the back of a 10-match winning streak. Sharks are unpredictable. Roosters is that big one. Roosters is always up there around the thing, so that's a hard one. And then the Warriors, if they continue their form from last year, they're the most difficult ones. They play 6 bottom 4 teams. They have an pretty easy opening, so they can set themselves up again. This is what they did last year. They had an easy opening, first half of the year. They set themselves up and put them in the top 8. If you remember, they were like 4th or something, or playing for 4th. Yeah. Back into the year, they lost all their matches. They play Knights, Tigers, Warriors, Sharks, Eels, Titans. So it's there's none of those top 4 always in the 8 teams in there. There's no Roosters, Storm, Panthers in there. Their way out is a little bit more difficult. They run home, they play Bulldogs, their last 6, Bulldogs, Sea Eagles, Cowboys, Panthers and Roosters, and then finish up with the year with the Dragons. So they can set themselves up at the beginning of the year, potter along through the year around the 8, and then finish up the year with a pretty easy run where they might just drop a couple, and that can get them into the 8. But you've got to look at those gains and losses, and you've got to see who the coach is, which is Ricky Stewart. We made no secret about the fact that we think he's the most overrated coach in the NRL. He has a very poor win percentage. He doesn't win premierships. He always has an excuse.
Yeah, we did, just to point out for our viewers and our listeners, John, we've got a video called The Most Overrated NRL Coach. If you type that into YouTube, I believe that's got a lot of views, John, on YouTube. That video we did on the most overrated.
A lot of comments.
So we go right into Ricky Stewart's record very deeply in that video.
Yep.
And we really pick it apart. John, no premiership win since 2002 for Ricky Stewart.
Multiple wooden spoons.
And that was his first year as an NRL coach. Since coaching the 2004 grand final with the Roosters, he's only reached 1 grand final. That was in 2019. So that's in the last 20 years now, John, only 1 grand final appearance. The Raiders finished 10th in 2021, John. They've only scraped into the 8 the last couple of years. They finished 8th in the regular season in both 2022 and 2023. We mentioned in 2023 they went out the first week, that thrilling extra time loss to Newcastle. But even in 2022, John, that they made it to week 2 of the finals, but then Parramatta just hammered them 40-4, John. So does it really, and I've said this before a few times, John, does it really matter if you're just scraping into the 8 each year, finishing 8th, and then just not firing a shot in the finals? All right, they got to week 2, but Parramatta just hammered them, John, and then last year they got knocked out in week 1. 10th in 2021, John. So this is the thing. I mean, they're making the 8, but only just, John, and they're not making any impact once they get there.
Since he's gone to the Raiders in 2014 after abandoning the Parramatta Eels and winning a wooden spoon with the Parramatta Eels, they've made the finals 4 times, the Raiders, okay? They've only made the finals 2 years in a row in 19 and 20, and in 2019 they did make it to the grand final. But his first year, they just missed out on the wooden spoon. The other years, though, when he's missed the 8, have always been 10th. 10th. They aren't one of those teams that fight for the 16, fight for the 8. They aren't one of those teams that are always thereabout. They aren't one of those teams that, all the way through the year, they're going, it's down to the last round, will they make the 8 kind of thing, except for this year, last year, whereas down to the last round, man, will they miss out on the 8? They weren't fighting for the 8, they were fighting to avoid getting dropped out. They were lucky to make it. They could have finished 10th again. and that's Ricky Stewart. That's the Canberra Raiders. They're not a team that you expect to make the 8. they're not even a team that you expect to fight for the 8. Like I said, yes, 4 times in the past 10 years they made the 8.
And that's the thing. 4 times they've made the 8 in 10 years. And when they're getting... most of the time, apart from 2019, obviously, when they made the grand final, most of the time they're just scraping in and not having an impact. So that's where I'd go. If I'm the Canberra hierarchy, the CEO, I'm looking at... You can almost go, well, if you don't make the top 4, if you're finishing in the 5 to 8 positions... and you're not getting to the prelim final, if you're getting knocked out in week 1 or week 2, and especially if you're not really competitive in those weeks, like getting thrashed in week 2 as they did in 2022, well, really, is there really any difference between doing that and finishing outside of the top 8?
Finishing 10th.
There's not a whole lot of difference there, John.
No.
So... But his mates in the media they'll gloss over all of that, John. They'll ignore what Canberra actually did when all they did, John. In reality, all they did was scrape into the 8 in 2022 and scrape into the 8 in 2023, and made no impact on the finals whatsoever. That's the reality, John. But his mates in the media will just say, "Oh, Ricky Stuart's made the finals the last 2 seasons." Yeah. They'll spin it, John. They won't go into any detail. They'll give him special treatment. They won't spin it with other coaches who they don't like so much for whatever reason. But with Ricky Stuart, the spin will be there, and his mates will look after him and overlook these details that we've gone into, John. Happens year after
absolutely.
year.
And he'll come into just to correct one thing. When I said the only time they've made it twice in a row, I meant prior to last year.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Because I know that people on the internet will pick that apart. Just calm down. But he'll come in every week. He'll come in with his excuses. Referees rob them. The team hasn't been able to spend the salary cap. We can't attract players. We have to go to England. Even England players don't want to play for us anymore. Yeah. All of these excuses that he always has, and the media will come up with statistics to prove it.
Yeah, they'll just use whatever statistics fit their argument. They'll be selective.
He always comes up with something, and they go and find 20. There's always that shot in the newspaper, on the internet, where it has like 9 stills of proof of what Ricky Stuart said is right.
Yeah.
They're always, every single year, it'll be like, he'll talk about how, we never get penalties in the play the ball. We never get penalties in the ruck, and it'll show like 9 or 12 clips of where Ricky Stuart's coached Canberra Raiders should have got a penalty, and Ricky Stuart's right. But that just goes back to Dean Young was the best forward on the field in the 2008 State of Origin.
And meanwhile, I've said a whole lot of things. The most glaring thing is with Ricky Stuart is no premiership since his first season in 2002. And the other thing is, since making the grand final in 2004, only one other grand final appearance. Only one grand final appearance in 20 years, and he's still got a gig. But, John, so you get... meantime, you'll still get people like Phil Rothfield come out and say that he should be the State of Origin coach, even despite everything we've just talked about.
Yeah, he withdrew his name before he was asked.
Yeah, so Phil Rothfield's still throwing him out there as a State of Origin coaching candidate in 2023 when the position was up for debate. According to Phil Rothfield of the Daily Telegraph, Ricky Stuart can do no wrong. When Paul Kent was on NRL 360, Ricky Stuart could do no wrong. It was completely ridiculous, some of the defences that Paul Kent would often make of Ricky Stuart and of his record, and it was a ridiculous agenda. It was hopeless. It was just unbelievable, John. It was just staggering. It was jaw-dropping, some of the defences Paul Kent used to make of Ricky Stuart.
Have you got a round 1 team, by the way? Because I'm really interested, actually. Because it does. We're talking about Ricky Stuart because this does come down to Ricky Stuart. Canberra is all about Ricky Stuart. We got to know what Ricky Stuart's doing. He's protected. He doesn't do very well. He's got a 50% win rate overall.
I'll go into the team in a second, John. But even when he called Jamin Salmon a weak-gutted dog in the press conference.
Yeah, that's always a weird insult.
Paul Kent even tried to defend that, if you can believe that. But anyway, John, they're round 1 team. My predicted round 1 team. I've got Chevy Stewart at fullback. I've got Jordan Rapana and Nick Kotrick on the wings. Ethan Strange and Matt Tomoko in the centres. Yeah, I think, and then you've got KO Weeks and Jamal Fogarty in the halves, John. So just looking at that, there's not a whole lot doing from 1 to 7.
Willie Mason's going to have a lot to say about that on his podcast.
Yeah. Well, if he's having a go at the Knights spine, he might want to turn his attention to the Raiders spine. But maybe he's a mate of Ricky Stewart's as well. I'm not sure. They all? Josh Papali and Joseph Tarpany in the front row. Zach Wolford at hooker. Hudson Young and Elliot Whitehead in the back row. Morgan Smithies at lock. On the bench, I've got Tom Starling, Emre Gula, Pasami Solo, and Zach Hosking on the bench. John.
There's nothing in that team that stands out except perhaps their starting props. They've got some good starting props. The rest of it is...
Papali and Tarpany, yeah.
Yeah, like good starting props. The rest of it is... It doesn't look good for them.
No, not at all, John. A few, and there's that's not their only worry, John. I mean, Corey Harawira Naira. We've got that situation where his fitness is under a bit of a cloud. John, remember he had that seizure, that medical issue. Yeah. So he's an indefinite, John. But we're not sure what's happening with him. So I've obviously done that team. Without factoring him in, John, because we just don't know what's happening with him and his health at the moment. Obviously, we wish him well. Corey Horsburgh's got that 4-game suspension as well, John. So that's why he's not in my round 1 team because he's out suspended. And we got Seb Chris suspended for 5 games as well, John. So that's why he's not in my round 1 team as well. So they got those issues to worry about, John. But yeah, obviously... John, with no Croker anymore, no Whiten anymore, and Valame going, there are no notable gains. I've got them finishing second last, John. They're slotting into 16th for me. I think they're really gonna struggle this year.
Man, that's heaps harsh for you to put them in 16th. Honestly, I put them in at 16th.
We've got some common ground here, John.
I just don't see them. Like you said, their team is. Every single professional rugby league player, deserves to be a professional rugby league player and has achieved something. Man, even if you play one NRL game, you've achieved something for life, okay? However, that said, you have to have superstars in your team to win. And unfortunately for Canberra right now, they don't have enough superstar power. They don't have enough creativity. They don't have enough X factor, whatever the hell you want to call it. They got some good starting props, and then they go light without their starting props. You're going to see periods throughout the year where both of those starting props are off the field, and I have a feeling that that's going to be the parts where Canberra get dominated up the middle and other teams just score massive amounts on them. And then this is, I don't even, like, we just talked about, like, Rabbitohs are an if-but, Cowboys were an if-but, Sea Eagles were an if-but, but there's the Raiders, I see no but. It's just, I think they'll finish 16th.
Yeah.
I think they're going to start out poorly, they're going to get smashed up the middle of the year, and they're going to finish up poorly.
Yeah, and Ricky Stewart's mates in the media will make every excuse under the sun. If they get a couple of injuries, they'll say that they got a widespread injury toll. Sorry, John, I'm not sure what you had, how difficult their draw is.
It was 6th easiest.
Okay, so because it's the 6th easiest, they'll ignore the draw. That won't be part of their analysis. They'll just look at, if there's any injuries... they'll make that excuse, and they'll use the excuse of losing those 3 quality players and not being able to sign anyone as well. Yeah. Even though it's the responsibility, recruitment and retention is the responsibility of the coach as well. But that'll just get overlooked, John. His mates in the media will look after him, and he'll never be under any pressure.
Exactly. Yeah. That's honestly, guys. It's just our opinion. Part 2 for the day, for the Raiders. Next, on Thursday, it will be... Who was it next? I'm so bad. I actually should have noted it down so I don't look like a just time filler. Roosters and the Sharks we'll do on Thursday.
Great.
That'll be exciting. I got some things to say about the Roosters.
Okay.
Remember, Trent Robinson is basically... He's on that video, the most overrated coach. Trent Robinson is the number 2 most mentioned by our fan base as the most overrated coach. So
Okay.
we refuse to accept that, though.
Bit to discuss with those previews on Thursday.
But then on to the Rugby League news. I saw this news article from Shane Flanagan. He believes Manly can win the competition if Tom Trbojevic stays fit. Shane Flanagan also said that the Dragons are going to push for the 8 this year. And it comes from they do a scrimmage every year now. I don't know since when, Manly and the Dragons. And apparently Manly look good. And Tommy Trbojevic looks good.
Yeah. I got to say, John, Shane Flanagan might be right in what he's saying, John.
Well, they got to win this decade, so this could be the one.
But I just don't like it when a coach of another team is saying, and I know the Dragons are no chance of winning the premiership. I'm not delusional.
Yeah.
I know that his team's going to go nowhere near winning the premiership and may even come last this year, John. I get that. But I don't like it when opposing coaches say that another team could win the premiership if this happens or this. Because, John, you're a Dragons fan.
Yeah. How does that make me feel?
You're sort of going, look, why? I don't care what he... This is the point. I don't care what Shane... I know Shane Flanagan worked at Manly recently, but I don't care what he thinks about how Manly are going to go. If I'm a Dragons fan like you, John, if I was a Dragons fan, I'd be going, talk about how we're going to go. Try and give us some hope, give us some optimism for the season ahead. Don't be talking about how Manly might go if Tom Trbojevic stays fit.
I want realistic optimism. Like he said, which we discussed, he said that the Dragons will make the 8. That was just like unrealistic. I wish Shane Flanagan was sitting there talking only about the Dragons and saying, we're going to do well this year. We're going to push ourselves up the 8. We're going to do better than last year. Like that kind of stuff. That's what I want to see. Not, we went and did a scrimmage with Manly and they're going to carve up and win the premiership. Because what does that say? If he's got nothing after that scrimmage to say about the Dragons, what does that say about the Dragons? There were some reports saying he was getting really, really angry at them about their lack of commitment in defence and their lack of chasing it was a play around.
Yeah.
But yeah, like he had some choice words to say to a bunch of the teams standing on the sideline screaming at them. I think Shane Flanagan is experiencing what it's like to deal with this current generation of Dragons who are all individually brilliant, 5 eyes in individual brilliance, no eyes in teams, and all of them are about the eyes. And yeah, this is just him coping. I hope it's just him coping with, he's got to change the whole culture of the Dragons.
Yeah, if I'm the Dragons CEO, John, I'm going into Shane Flanagan's office and I'm saying, I don't want to. I'm printing off this article and I'm going to him and saying, I don't want you talking about how Manly are going to go.
Yeah.
Stop talking about it. Talk about and focus on how we're going to go this year. Well, that's where all your attention needs to be. Don't be talking about how Manly might win the premiership if Tom Trbojevic stays fit.
I mean, like I said, I saw the news article and I read the news article and it was based on him going and watching or taking his team to scrimmage with another team, and the comments that he had were solely about the other team. It makes me feel even worse about being a Dragons fan.
Yes.
He had no comments about our team.
Yeah.
He took, like, that just is like, oh.
Yeah, it's sort of saying, John, that I read that and I go, so you give your own team such little chance this year that you're willing to say that another team could win the premiership if their star players don't fit. That's how little regard you have for your own team's
especially
chances
after watching them play another team.
Yes.
Like I've just gone out and watched my team play another team. That other team will win the premiership.
That is not the message.
Bro, what about your team? We're not talking about my team.
That is not the message he should be sending to his own team and his own supporter base.
All that really did for me was firmed that my prediction for the Dragons getting 17th this year were coming more and more true.
Yeah, well, at least he did that for you, Tom, if nothing else.
Best possible outcome. Just quickly on the Dragons, actually, before we move on to Ivan Cleary, the news came out about Cody Ramsey. We've discussed at length whether he'll be in and stuff like that. So, unfortunately, he won't be playing in 2024. As the latest news, he's got that ulcerative colitis, which he's missed 2023 and now 2024. But the Dragons are planning to re-sign him. to take care of him.
Okay,
because
good.
it's that health insurance thing is like really big. So,
good on the Dragons for that, John. That's the right way to treat your players.
Yeah.
And I hope that the Dragons get, in light of this, John, that they're gonna re-sign him to take care of him. I'm hoping that the Dragons get some good karma out of that, John, and as a result of that, they can lure some other big name players to the club.
And like you got to remember he's signed as a player, so he's counting. He's in their salary cap. He's signed as a top 30 player and stuff like that, and so they're just like basically wiping their name through one specific player.
Yeah.
He was meant to be the long-term first-choice fullback. We've discussed they have fullback issues. But yeah, I hope Cody Ramsey gets better.
It's a huge show of faith and good on the
the Dragons.
The Dragons for taking that step, John. Again, I hope other players look at that and go, well, if that's how the Dragons are treating their players, I want to be a Dragons player.
He's only played like 24 games or something like that, 36 games in 3 years, and they're still putting this much into him. So that's, Other players, take note. Come play for the Dragons. But Ivan Cleary's obviously I'm really curious as to what will happen with Jerome Luai throughout the year, as is everyone, because there has been that bitterness. You can't have a grumpy bum player at your club, and you can't have a grumpy bum coach being grumpy bum with your grumpy bum player. So Ivan Cleary and Jerome Luai are not meshing very well right now.
That's why I think Cleary needed. I don't know. Obviously, there's not a lot that you can criticise about Ivan Cleary at the moment. Johnny's just coached 3 premiership wins in a row. But if I am going to be critical, it's with that public comment he made about Luai, saying that, well, I'm not sure if he's untested when he's the key playmaker. He's been playing, alongside Nathan for so long, off the back of Nathan. We don't know how he's going to go as the key playmaker. Ivan Cleary, I guess, put that question mark out there about Luai, but now he's still got to work with him for 12 months. He's still the Panthers 5/8 for the next 12 months. They're still trying to win their 4th premiership in a row in 2024. So I just don't know whether Ivan Cleary thought that through very well, that very fact that, well, he's not gone yet. You've still got to work with him for another 12 months. And
that's what I mean. So, but he's not. They've got somebody in mind to replace.
Well, yeah,
Ryan?
John. If all goes to plan, they might not have to look too far, John, for the replacement. So Nathan Cleary's younger brother is turning out for Penrith at the moment in the SG Ball.
Oh.
So he's 17 years old. He's been working his way through the grades of the Panthers, hoping to emulate his famous brother, John. Jet's been impressing over the last few years. He's also a halfback, John. That's a point to make.
Better convert into a 5/8.
So it could be turned into a 5/8. Starred for the New South Wales Combined Catholic Colleges at the National Schoolboys Championships last season. The Warriors, I think, were keen on poaching Jet, but he's decided to re-sign with the Panthers.
Of course he has. His dad and brother play.
I don't think there was any real danger of him leaving, John. Obviously it's a big ask for... in 2025 he'll only be 18, John. It's a big ask for him to obviously be expected to come into the halves at that point. But certainly down the track, he's someone they could be looking at, John. Maybe not next year, but maybe 2-3 years down the track. They
could sign a temporary replacement, retiring person, something like that, and then you'd have Cleary in the halves, Cleary as the coach, going for a 5-peat, a quintuple Pete. I don't know. That'll be interesting. I do like it when all these sons come through, the younger players. There was the one actually recently. Matty Johns' sons play rugby league. They play in the Storm system, and one of them retired from rugby league and became a Nova radio person.
It might be Kyle and Jackie O, maybe.
Yeah, he's on one of those. But I like it when they make it. I like it when they make it through to the first grade and actually play well and become superstars like their dads and mums.
It would be tough. It's tough for people in those circumstances, John, because a lot of the time people will be saying, "Oh, well, you're only here because of your dad, or you're only here because of your brother," or So it's hard for them to stand out on their own merits because everyone just says, "Oh, well, you're only here because of your dad," you know. So
they've got to be good, and that's what I mean. Like, so you look at Kyle Flanagan, who's clearly only at the Dragons because of his dad.
I mean that's a very clear example of. But then, had he not been Shane's son, the Dragons don't sign him, John. It's as simple as that.
But then you have Nathan Cleary, who's definitely standing on his own. Now, Nathan
Cleary's on the other side of the ledger where you go, well, I mean, Nathan Cleary is clearly better than his father as a player. There's no question of that.
Ivan Cleary now lives in Nathan Cleary's shadow.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's Rugby League for the week. We do have a lot of news came out yesterday and the day before about the new Tasmanian team in the AFL. They're obviously building a stadium for them ridiculously. Anything that is in an episode of Utopia should never be done.
Yeah, so they're going to enter the competition in 2028, John, as the 19th team, this Tasmanian AFL club. It's been confirmed that in March they're going to launch to the public with their name, colours and logo. Mm-hmm. It's all been locked in after extended consultation, John. All been locked in, so now they've just got to unveil it in March. So they were granted the 19th licence 9 months ago. There was decades of campaigning, finally resulted in a unanimous vote of confidence from all 18 club presidents and the commission. That was after the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, and the federal government pledged $240 million in funding to help build a stadium that will be at Macquarie Point, John. So, it seems, things are getting in readiness, John, now for this Tasmanian AFL club to come in to the competition in 2028.
Okay. 19th team. Yeah. They go to an uneven thing, so AFL has to live with what we have now. Nobody likes the uneven ladder, honestly, with the buys and okay. Exciting. We'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. No combat sports news. Still waiting for the UFC 300. Actually, there is combat sports news. Yesterday, the Subversion poster came out. So obviously, SmartB sponsors Subversion, and we have some other news soon. But the Subversion poster came out, and ADCC champion Fionn Davies will be coming to compete for one of the women's belts on that. So as we have more news, we will mention that too. So Subversion's looking good, always putting the best show on in Australia. As I said, still no main event for UFC 300. That's the only main combat sports news that everyone is waiting for. Basically, every single superstar in MMA is doing an Instagram post or a tweet with the words 300 in it. Conor McGregor, Israel Adesanya, Michael Chandler, like all of the people that everyone want to see fights, doing announcements, but we're all waiting on Dana White's announcement. And as soon as we know, we'll let you know. On to other sports news, and I looked at this morning and I did say a couple of weeks ago, Nick Kyrgios will always be there for us. But we'll talk about Andy Roddick first.
Andy Roddick, former world number one player, John, won the US Open back in 2003. He said that he's a bit concerned about Novak Djokovic for two reasons. So I think we were a bit reluctant to read too much into that semi-final loss to Yannick Sinner at the Australian Open, John. But Andy Roddick is reading a bit into it, John. He's worried about Djokovic's age now. He thinks the age of 36, turning 37 in May, that's starting to catch up with him. And he also feels like that now there are younger rivals that, quote, can punch him in the mouth, was Roddick's quote, on his podcast. So we mentioned, obviously, the Yannick Sinner loss at the Australian Open, John. That wasn't the only time that Yannick Sinner beat him. Beat him at the Davis Cup, beat him at the ATP Finals, and you also had Carlos Alcaraz beating him in that Wimbledon final last year. I do feel a bit harsh, John, because Djokovic did win the other three majors, which we should clearly point out here. But, interesting that Roddick's gone down that line, John. He's not viewing this as just a one-off, an aberration. He thinks that something's brewing here, and this could be potentially the beginning of the end for Djokovic.
I think Andy Roddick actually probably has some really good insights.
He does.
Into
He's
this.
a really good. He's commentated a bit. He commentated for the BBC a number of years ago. Very good commentator.
But actually, insights into the Djokovic situation, because Andrew Roddick actually went through the same thing. He was top of the game for the longest time, and then started to decline when he got a bit older. I always remember, like, his serve was ridiculous, and it was Federer who played him in one of the major finals.
Yeah. His problem basically was Federer, John. If Federer had not have been there, Roddick goes on to win a lot more majors than just the one major. In the 2009 Wimbledon final, the two had an epic fifth set. Federer won 16-14 in the fifth set. So that was one that got away for Roddick. And it wasn't the only one, John. A number of times Federer beat Roddick in majors when Roddick looked like he was going to be the winner. If Federer doesn't play, if Federer's not there, John, I think Roddick wins at least 5 majors.
Yeah.
But with Federer there, he only managed to win that one major, John.
And he knows better than most when it's time to quit, because he quit at the perfect time. Retired.
Retired in 2012, and I think he was only around about 30 at the time, John.
Yeah, he knew the time.
He's the opposite of Andy Murray, who clearly doesn't know when the right time is. Roddick went, look, I've had enough. I'm not in the running to win majors anymore, so I'm done. But he had a great career. He was in the top 10 for a long time.
Such a good player. And that's what I mean. Like, he has would have a lot of insight that other people commenting on it wouldn't have.
Yes.
About knowing, like, trying to quit on top, at the top of his game and going out at the right time. So, as you even just said, I'm going to reserve judgment on Djokovic. He's been through slumps before. He's never won a calendar year. Losing one major, he does it every year. Okay? But he goes on and wins the other 3 every year. Yeah. So we'll see what happens in the French Open.
It's a funny story about, while we're talking about Andy Roddick, John, I remember he... it actually came to the surface that he's one of the rare players who actually has a winning record against Djokovic.
Oh my God.
I think he leads Djokovic like 5-4 on their head-to-head, and someone sort of brought it to his attention on Twitter and said, "Hey, Andy Roddick, you've got a winning record over Novak Djokovic." And they said, "Oh, what's your secret?" And Roddick posted something like, retire before you can play him enough times.
Exactly.
Retire before you can play him enough times for him to humiliate.
That's one of the things I always do when playing video games. When my kids start getting better than me, I beat them one more time, go, never playing again, retiring grand champion of the universe, done.
So a very well-timed retirement, John. Didn't go on too long at all. Went early
he did
enough
it
for him to
perfectly.
have a winning record over Novak Djokovic.
But yes, Nick Kyrgios has given us news because he's going to for the rest of his life.
So John, he's offered to walk out, and this is sort of up your alley, being about boxing. Offered to walk out alongside Mitch Robinson for his boxing bout against fellow former AFL player Kane Pettifer. Yes, Mitch Robinson, also a former AFL player, played 247 games for Carlton and Brisbane in a 14-year AFL career. Pettifer played 113 games. Pettifer at 42 is 8 years Robinson senior, so that's a bit iffy, John. But anyway, so Robinson declared it's official in an Instagram post. And then Nick Kyrgios has weighed in, John. He said, "Who you fighting? I want to walk out with you." Robinson swiftly replied, "Can you rap? You can do everything else." And Kyrgios answered, "Anything for you." So now Nick Kyrgios wants to walk out with boxers or ex-AFL players who are boxing, John.
That's bizarre.
Yeah.
You know what Nick Kyrgios could do? He could also go and play tennis.
Yeah. There's an idea, John. Doesn't seem to be too high on his list of priorities.
I can't wait till we can officially put news stories here, because you've got here, Nick Kyrgios offers to do boxing walkout with ex-AFL player. I can't wait till we put ex-tennis player Nick Kyrgios. Offers to do another crazy thing. That reminded me, actually, because you mentioned boxing. Tyson Fury versus Usyk. Alexandra, whatever it is, I can't pronounce his name. Their fight for February is officially postponed because Tyson Fury got a massive cut over his eye. So everyone wanted to see that. Unfortunately, we won't. It'll be announced and rescheduled to a later date. On to our social media blower-uppers. Now, we posted a video on Friday, which was a cut of when we discussed women's equal pay in sports, and we both presented differing arguments either way. Unfortunately, we had to remove the posts and remove all comments due to the vitriol that happened on the post. There were terrible things being said towards us, the hosts, other people in the comments, and women in sport in general. So we don't have any comments this week because we decided to wipe all comments or not mention all comments. We will be back to it on Thursday. But just wanted to highlight the fact that we want people to engage on our posts. Mm-hmm. We want them to present solid arguments and conversation points for us to use in the podcast, but we won't tolerate this kind of nonsense with bigoted, antisocial, and absolutely some of the things that I said were absolutely disgusting. We generally hide comments that we are a little bit bad, but this one we actually had to delete the entire post.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Look, John, we're both passionate about our sport. This is a sports podcast. We love our sport, but it is only sport at the end of the day. There's no need to get personal with people. There's no need to attack people personally. Just stick to the issue, be respectful. We got a lot of commenters who are, John. The General's a really good commenter, I should say. Riley's another one who there's some really good commenters out there, John. And this sort of behaviour spoils it for our really good commenters as well. So that those people like that who are very valuable to us and we value their feedback greatly. Those people are just shut down by these other idiots who want to make it personal with everybody and ruin the debate. As
I was saying to Dan before, I came out of the gym on Friday night. We posted on Friday. I came out of the gym on Friday night. After an hour and a half, I had 77 notifications. It had like report notifications, things like that. There was like one or two comments in there that were of value that we were originally gonna discuss, and in the end, we had the internal conversation and went, no, we got to shut this down. It's terrible. Look, you can question our qualifications if you want. We've gone through them before. We can go through them again. I've played sport all my life through high school. I'm currently active Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitor and coach. I'm at the gym 6 days a week. I'm happy to have people visit. I'm pretty well known in the community of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I watch religiously the sports I love, Rugby League, UFC, or any MMA. I like AFL, cricket. I actually like any sports. I subscribe to most sporting things, and I just watch anything basically if there's sport on. And you can say what you want about me. I don't care, but we won't tolerate abuse. Actually, abuse.
Yeah. I think you might want me to run through my background again, John. I'll do it for you now. So I've had an on and off career in the sports media for the last 18 years, John. I started straight out of school. Started when I was 18. I currently work at Fox Sports News as a freelance reporter. I do packages on games for Fox Sports News. That's what I'm doing at the moment. I was a reporter with the Sun Herald newspaper for a number of years, John. So that's my experience. I also was on the NRL footy show in the trivia quizzes as well, John, when those were on. So that's my background. It's an 18-year body of work in the sports media, John. That's my experience. As I said to you before, or as I said to you, our listeners and our viewers before, Dan, who works here, contacted me, it might have been about 6 months ago now, John. He put me in touch with you and Amjad, our managing director. We got together, we had a meeting, we decided to have a trial. We had the trial, and afterwards we proceeded to go forward with this. And now we're at episode number 46, John. We're about to celebrate our 50th episode.
Yep.
So hopefully that means that we're doing something right, John. I would hope. I think if we weren't going well, I don't think we would have made it this far, and we wouldn't be approaching 50 episodes.
We're constantly getting new subscribers. We're up to about 550 now, and our videos get on average 1,400 views per episode. So obviously people are invested, but as I said, we don't tolerate nonsense, abuse, personal attacks, things like that. It's just not accepted. We really appreciate people who comment and give good discussions. That West Tigers preview video we've posted, that's had... we posted that, we did that, what are we up to now? 9th. So,
That was the first one we did.
Yeah, 17th, and it's been brought up almost every single episode. There were comments on it this week again, and that's the thing. We want to have those kind of comments. We can address them, but to abuse each other, unacceptable. To abuse us, unacceptable. And some of the absolutely horrible things that were said about women in sport in general were absolutely unacceptable.
It's not on, John. That's no way to speak.
It's the thing we always talk about, cowardly people on the internet who hide behind internet anonymity.
It's just the way they carry on and the way they attack people personally, attacking us, John, attacking other commenters, attacking women in sport. It just shows how pathetic these people are, that they've got nothing better to do with their time, nothing more constructive to do with their time than to do that, than to be abusive towards people. It reflects far more on them.
Absolutely.
Than it does on the people they're attacking, John.
Yeah, we very rarely had to actually delete any comments from our posts in the past 6 months. But unfortunately, on Friday, we had to delete the whole post.
It's unfortunate, John, that we've had to take that step, but that's just the way it goes. But we're not having that. It's just not on. You can disagree with us on the issues all you want. We want that. We want that. We want that engagement. We want that back and forth. We want that healthy debate with our listeners and our viewers. But just don't make it personal. Don't make it abusive. Again, like you said, John. You said that you don't care if you cop that abuse. Personally, John, I don't care either. They can say what they want about me. I couldn't care less. But to say what they've said about you, John, and about what other commenters have said and about women in sport, John, that's just not on. And
internet cowardice.
And by the same token, John, I'll make this point as well. You by doing this, by attacking us in this way, you will not silence us.
Yeah.
If you think this is going to stop us from going deep on these issues and having the provocative discussions, and really taking this debate where other people are too scared to take it, that won't be happening, John. We will not be intimidated by these lunatics and these morons on social media.
Absolutely.
We will continue to have these debates that other media outlets are too scared to have because they're too scared of what people think of them.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had discussions internally with the marketing team and things like that, the people who actually do all the work, we're cutting the videos and stuff, about even having good commenters appear as guests for portions of the podcast and things like that. That's the kind of thing we want. That's that social media blower-upper is for the week. As I said, we did have comments. We weren't going to address them because we wanted to address this more importantly. Mm-hmm. Keep the comments coming. We love you, General. We love you, Riley. We love you, TikTok watcher, not poster.
There are some others, John. I do apologise if I've forgotten them, but I will keep my eye out for. There are others who give very constructive.
Absolutely.
Bulldogs Elite, I think, is
Bulldogs Elite is another one.
It's really good. We've had some really good feedback from some of the commenters. John.
As the one, it's like I said, okay to disagree. Present the constructive disagreement, and we can address it and continue. We had that conversation with the General that went on for like 5 episodes.
Yeah, and the thing is, John, we've disagreed with the General a number of times.
Yeah,
but we love the General's feedback because he's constructive. And he doesn't get personal. He just talks about the issues themselves.
That's the way it's got to be. So as I said, that's it for social media blower-uppers. On to housekeeping. We're very excited to announce our first SmartB ambassador, Jake O'Driscoll. Jake O'Driscoll is an active competitor in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu all around Australia and the world. He's come on board last week. He will be in town for Subversion. He's competing on the card. We're going to have him in for a special edition of... So Subversion is on the same weekend as UFC 300. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have him in to do a preview those 2 cards. We also have another announcement on Thursday, which is a big one, which is very relevant to our Rugby League fans. So watch out for that.
Right.
Episode 50 is coming up, and there's a special guest who's going to be on that to discuss the Rugby League year.
We got people joining us, do we, John?
Yes.
Potentially.
Yep,
great.
Special guest.
Great.
Don't forget to sign up for the SmartB on the SmartB website for the tip of the day. And also enter the competition for Subversion. You can win 2 tickets to the event on April the 6th. And the SmartB Racing Update first episode was on Friday with Bryce and Lewis. I had to listen to it. It's only like 30 minutes long. because there's not a lot of news in racing, but the tips are really good.
To be honest, John, I was away all weekend at a Bucks weekend, so I haven't had a chance. But is that's up? Is it?
It's currently available on the Backer Winner website. Backer Winner is one of our partners, and Bryce tips for Backer Winner, and it'll have its own feed and everything by the end of today. It does. The issue with podcasts, just so everyone knows, is you need to have a recorded episode before you can create all of those things like the feeds and publish them and stuff like that. Yeah, and then it takes a few days.
Okay, yeah. So I will, once that's sort of up and running and everything, John, I will give that a listen.
And so it's every Friday. It'll be up Friday afternoons. It's really good. There was a little bit of news, but a lot of tips. And the way these guys break down horse racing and why they give tips and stuff like that and why they're picking certain horses is it's really insightful. Yeah, I listened to it on Friday night. Took a lot away from it. As always, gamble responsibly. So thanks, everyone. That's episode 46. See you all for episode 47 on Thursday. Have a good few days, Dan.
Thanks, John.
And bye, Producer Pyle.